recording.
Welcome to the Centralized News Podcast, where we report the major events affecting the crypto economy. I'm your host, Piter, joined as always by Aussie.
What's up,
let's jump right into it. This is not financial advice. We're going to do headlines, just a touch of macro, and a speed run that includes a little bit of a GOON update, like our favorite project right now. But anyway, on a personal level, yeah. But let's just talk about the market in general. We're sitting at Bitcoin on a Monday evening in the States, sitting at 66K, about 10% off the all-time high, down since the Fed meeting, basically. It went down in expectation of the meeting, pumped back up a little bit, and then it's been pretty much in a downward trend since. Bitcoin is just down a little bit. The broader altcoin market has been taking it harder, and including today, but not just today, with 90% of the top coins in the red today.
Yeah, and most of them, if you look, the altcoin market's bled about 10% in the last week or so, whereas Bitcoin in the last week is down
4% or something.
Yeah, about half, a little less than half that or something. It's ridiculous to just see how much more of a beating the alts are taking compared to Bitcoin at the moment.
Didn't notice it. Yeah. And it seems like the further down you go in the market cap, the higher the volatility, I guess, which should be expected. But yeah, there's some bleeders out there right now. It's definitely going to test your conviction a little bit, I think, in this market. But I don't think this is me personally, but I don't think it's the time to capitulate. Maybe reconsider your conviction and the way you research projects. But yeah, I don't know if it's the time to fold just yet. We got the ETH ETF coming up. But another sign of kind of the market, besides all the alts bleeding, has also been the outflows. So we had a pretty good record going. I think it's 17 or 19 days of inflows. And this is reflected in the weekly chart. But we had, and even the week started off strong, but by the end of the last week, we had a pretty big outflow.
That's not peanuts, especially in the ETFs, even though they're holding somewhere in the realm of $19-20 billion, at least for BlackRock. 600 million in outflows is not.
It's like the second biggest week.
Yeah, that's the second biggest.
It's a big drop.
Yeah, that's a very big drop. And if you think that doesn't have a broader impact on the crypto market, it definitely does. And it just also shows the general sentiment. The fact that you've got that strong of an outflow, especially after a strong start to the week, means there's some bearish news.
The big bearish news, yeah, the Fed. I don't know if you want to touch a little bit on the macro. We're not going to spend too much time on it just because it already happened. But we had a cool CPI print, and then the Fed came out, quote unquote, hawkish. At the beginning of the year, there was expectations of 3 or 4 rate cuts this year. We're getting down to maybe 1, maybe 2.
Yeah, the tone was surprisingly hawkish, surprisingly strong, and that almost solidified the fact that we are not going to be seeing a cut in July, which means we're talking mid-September is the next likeliest cut date, which is you're now looking essentially almost 3 months from now. So that's quite a while for the market to wait. And there were other comments about quantitative easing and all of that were not as dovish as people were hoping for. And while Jerome Powell did say we'll probably see 1 to 2 cuts, he was still pretty hawkish. So not a good sign for risk-on assets like Bitcoin.
And that was coming off a week where we saw Canada, Europe, Switzerland, all fairly recently cutting rates. So it was like, oh, okay, here we go. But I was watching, I think it was Benjamin Cowan.
Yeah.
I think he had a CPI show and like a FOMAC show. And he was talking about how the last time they started cutting rates, that the expectations were like this. It was like, yeah, it's going to happen, but it's not happening yet. And then all of a sudden it was like cut. So
well, I think the market's expectation of September is probably spot on. Like we could be wrong. And maybe in July we see people saying, oh, no, it's November. I feel like we're going to see it in September. I think to kick off election, like the kind of the start of the election, have a rate cut. I think that feels right on point, on the money for me.
As your bold prediction, September. I'm going with the next meeting. No, I'm just kidding. I'll just watch and see. Let's see, another interesting story, like our next big headline. Tether, USDT, the world's largest stablecoin issuer, is launching a new synthetic dollar, and it's to be backed by gold. The first coin is going to be a USDT. It's going to be tied to the US dollar's value, but backed by real gold. And the way you get the gold is you buy their X, which is an already existing Tether product. It only has a $500 million market cap or something. Where you buy, sounds like a gold ETF, like a
Yeah, I think
representative.
it's synthetic gold, but it's backed by gold. It's like PAX G and a few of the other gold-backed stable coins.
So it's an interesting concept. So now you're going to have two stable coins worth $1 from Tether. One's backed by gold, and one's backed by treasury investment.
It's interesting,
so,
but it goes with their whole RWA thing that they're doing, real world asset and kind of tokenization. So it doesn't surprise me Tether is really trying to diversify out of just being USDT. And so I have a feeling we'll continue to see more stories like this.
With Tether, they invest in the treasuries and make a profit on that, right? So,
yes, and then they're buying Bitcoin miners to mine Bitcoin.
Yeah, so and then they can do things with that money. But I see how, okay, it's good. It's another product for the market. But it's hard for me to conceptualize what it means to the market or how it might benefit the market. But it's interesting. I just
think it's really just if people don't trust treasury bonds but want to be backed by the US dollar, want to transact in the US dollar, then they choose gold backing.
If you give up your gold, XAUT, and fiat goes down versus the gold, it's almost like a permanent loss or something. So you're gonna keep your dollar that's constantly worth. So maybe that's how Tether wins. They get the gold.
Yeah, I don't know. It's complicated. I don't know where Tether makes money in that scheme.
It's brand new, so
like I think they're just really trying to diversify out of USDT in case they get shut down. Like in case, so they got to find other ways to make money. Bitcoin miners, maybe they've got some idea with gold, and we'll see what else they come up with.
Some bullish adoption news. You want to lead us off in this section?
Yeah, we've got a few bullish adoption stories, starting with T-Mobile. Their owner, Deutsche Telekom, is going to start Bitcoin mining. And they already were running nodes for the Bitcoin blockchain, and now they are adding mining. So they're the world's largest telecom company with about 3 times the footprint of Verizon and twice that of T. And they are like really stepping into this space, really trying to become a next level player in terms of just outside of telecoms.
I wonder in one of these, it's a huge company. I don't think this is what they're doing, but I was imagining T-Mobile using IoT technology and just running a giant pool with their phones, mining Bitcoin off their mobile phones. Is that possible?
It would wear the phones out faster, but probably you could.
Is that even a feasible thing? Or they'll do another proof of work like Dogecoin or something?
Yeah, or the good old HNT or something like that. Hive Mapper or Helium. It'll be interesting. I think they're positioning themselves, and I don't 100% know what they're doing, but they seem to have a vision and trying to get into the crypto space as part of it. That's interesting because apparently they're not the only telecom company that's getting into the mining game this week. The Chinese telecom company Giant Coolpad, hopefully that is the correct English translation, is investing $13.5 million in Bitcoin mining rigs. So in the grand scheme of things, that's not a ton of money for Bitcoin.
But these two stories together is a trend, and it's like expected to see it from energy producers. Okay, there's excess energy, we're going to mine Bitcoin, but to see these telecom companies going into it.
There is some things that make sense. Telecom companies have a lot to do with networking and internet and connectivity, and
they're more techy companies. I guess it's a different kind of tech,
but it's still networking and those kind of like small advantages that you can get can apparently make a big difference in terms of optimizations and software. It's not perfect. I don't think there's a direct correlation, but there's definitely.
Well, we're going to talk about TON in the speed run, and it's about a user base with them. A lot of the story around their success is about this huge user base they have. So maybe there's something there.
Yeah, maybe that plays another part in it too. I think there's a lot of kind of pieces that tie into it, and just interesting to see telecom also getting into mining game, both in Europe and in China. So that's worth watching. And talking about Bitcoin and being added to balance sheets and becoming more of a reserve asset, the Taunton firefighters have become the fourth union in the US to add Bitcoin on its balance sheet. So Bitcoin adding to union sheets, company balance sheets. This is continuing to become more of an asset.
This is a surprisingly bullish story to me, just in the sense that everybody loves firefighters, right? So you see government adopt things. Sometimes it's good. Some people hate the government, so they're not really gonna. Nobody really hates firefighters. They pretty much come and in your darkest hour, everybody loves them. So it's a nice bullish trend to see firefighters endorsing Bitcoin, so to speak, or at least their union starting to.
Yeah, it's good to see it. I think seeing that level of kind of just smaller scale adoption and larger scale adoption is pretty good to see just in the US and throughout the world. Because if you look at this, we've got Europe, we've got China, and we've got the US. We're covering all three major economies right now. So that's pretty good news, especially as rumor has it that the Spot Ethereum ETFs are going to be launching on July 2nd. So that is right now what Bloomberg analysis is saying. Eric Balkunis.
This really surprised me. This whole ETH ETF thing, is how it rolled out, really surprised me. I'm no legal expert, but when I look at the Howey test, it looks like ETH and a lot of these other cryptos pass the Howey test, but you don't want to pass the Howey test, right? That means you're a security. But I was surprised by this. They were taking such a strong stance for so long. I was like, it's hard to imagine. I thought the original bets of 10, 25% were more accurate, and then it just shifted real suddenly, and now we're going to see it. But we've definitely seen a broader strategic retreat from the SEC.
Yeah. So talking about that, a strategic retreat from the SEC's chief of crypto asset enforcement, David Hirsch, has left his role with the SEC and officially stepped down just on the news of this potential and projected launch of the ETFs. Is it part of a greater kind of retreat from the SEC, maybe a little bit less focus on enforcement, or does this maybe have to do with the ETFs being approved and being put in place? Maybe.
Yeah, we'll talk. There's also the XRP that their penalty got reduced. We'll bring that up in a second. But just to add on to this story real quick, this story got a little weird on Twitter today. So Pump Fun, some kind of meme coin launcher, I'm not that familiar with it, but they have an official Twitter account. They tweeted that this guy was now working for them as a head of trading for Pump Fund, and he had to come out and say, and there's like I think it's Cointelegraph or something like that, but he came out and denied, like, I have not announced what I'm doing, and I'm not doing meme coins. Doesn't mean we'll be working in crypto, but anyway, I just thought that was interesting. But yeah, just building on what you said, there does seem to be a kind of a retreat. It's nice to see. One, we're potentially getting an ETH ETF soon. All signs are really pointing towards it now. But also the XRP case, which was one of the original cases with the SEC, the biggest brand name one that they did, right, was XRP. They've been in the crosshairs, it seems like, forever. Right? It was like almost before the last bull run or something like that.
It was basically before the last bull run.
They were being really aggressive, and now they've lowered that to 102. So yeah, just another sign of this potentially strategic retreat. But yeah, I don't think they're going to give up.
I don't think they're necessarily giving up, because Gary Gensler doesn't necessarily give up, but they do make strategic rollovers. And approving the spot ETFs had everything to do with not getting sued and nothing to do with Gary Gensler's stance or the general stance of the SEC on crypto as a whole. I think that's an interesting thing to see, especially because we also had this story out of the Biden administration that some of the administration is going to be attending a Bitcoin roundtable with other congressional officials in DC. So this is an interesting shift.
Yeah, but this is, while a welcome overture, they had a similar overture just before they vetoed that bill. I forget the details of it now, but they had something similar, more positive stories coming out or getting leaked out. So it's a leaked story, and it's pretty light. They're going to attend a roundtable that's about keeping Bitcoin in America. Doesn't mean they support it. They're going to attend. And if you look at their recent actions, they vetoed that legislation that would have allowed highly regulated financial institutions to custody Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And then the Department of Justice just went after the Samurai Wallet, a popular Bitcoin mixing service. And then in May 2023, compared crypto trading to wealthy tax. In March, his administration published an economic report highly critical Bitcoin proof of work mining and promoting a CBDC. And then they also proposed a 30% tax on Bitcoin mining. So a lot of their rhetoric up to this point, and they barely softened up, oh, we're going to a summit. That's not really even strong rhetoric against it. And then on the flip side, you have Donald Trump, who has really changed his rhetoric quite dramatically.
Yeah, he's officially said that he wants the U.S. to rule the Bitcoin mining industry. That will mean you guys will have to find cheaper power. As much as Texas is cheap and Arizona is somewhat cheap, you need cheaper power overall. He met with...
But that would encourage innovation in that realm. People would want cheaper, more efficient energy they would have an alternative reason to go after that. I think you put your mind to something.
Oh yeah, there are plenty of ways that you can also recapture heat energy from the Bitcoin miners because they produce a lot of heat and turn that back into electricity.
There are studies coming out about excess that was pollution that could be used and turned into energy and mined for Bitcoin. Now there's a value to that energy, whereas before there wasn't, and it just turned into pollution. So yes, it creates more demand for energy. It's not the only innovation going on there. But yeah, so this is Trump going to a roundtable. He met with CEO Jason Lee of Riot Platforms and head of their public policy. But he comes out and says these kind of strong statements. It's just like night and day.
Yeah. He says he wants all future Bitcoin to be mined in the U.S. Good luck with that. But there was also a fun tweet that predicted he would try to make it legal tender if he was elected. So interesting to see what Donald Trump does and how his rhetoric towards Bitcoin either strengthens, stays stagnant, or he makes a misstep. But right now he's making some strong statements. I don't think his idea on Bitcoin mining is realistic. When you can mine for 3 cents a kilowatt in Paraguay or Brazil or something like that, it's hard to compete even with thinking about 9 cents a kilowatt, which is what I've got here. Actually, I've got 6.7 cents a kilowatt here, or in some places like Massachusetts, like double or triple that at least. So interesting. We'll see what happens. If you like this content, please give us a like. Also, consider subscribing to the video. It makes a huge difference for us and helps us feel so much better and helps this video get out to more people. We would really appreciate the love. We appreciate all the love that the Gooners and all those goons gave us on the last video. Please consider joining us again and helping us feel that love.
And a shout out to them. We'll bring them up in the speed run. But if you want to touch anything on macro before we get into the speed run?
Yeah, I don't really think there's much to touch on other than the fact that right now it's a 90% chance of no cut in July and only a 10% expectation for a cut in July. So really right now market's still not believing that will be a cut.
The only thing I would add is, there are some housing numbers this week, some story about the economy, how it's doing, is it getting weaker, to keep an eye on. Then we have PCE inflation late next week. So kind of quiet on the Western front, but you never know. Things can pop up.
Yeah. That being said, let's dive into our speed run because there's some interesting stories, especially out of Telegram and TON, their TON blockchain. Its TVL has surged above 600 million, which is a new record for TON. Its massive user base is about 100 times larger than the current on-chain user base of all other blockchains, which is
9 they have using Telegram.
That's wild. And then building on that, meme coins have been rallying despite the kind of stagnant market or even negative market that we've been having. The meme coins deployed have rallied over the last day with their overall market cap increasing by about 35% in the past day, and now
meme coins love to market on Telegram. So
no, meme coins. It makes sense that meme coins are a favorite on TON. Generally, reason why most blockchains want to attract meme coins is because they do bring user base. But looking at it, their TVL related to meme coins right now is about $172 million. So almost a third of their TVL is meme coins. And
Yeah.
Resistance Dog, Cat, Rika, and Ton are some of the bigger leaders in that space, up between and 49% in the last 24 hours. So interesting
Yeah,
to
there's
see.
a lot of activity on Telegram. It was cool to see some of the names. I don't follow the meme coins there, but yeah, it's always cool to hear what's going on over there. They also have there's a Telegram based game called Hamster Combat. I have not played it yet.
That's a key word here. You will be playing that game.
We'll see. But I don't know if it's simple enough. I have very basic equipment, but they have over 150 million players, and they're going to do a token airdrop. So yeah, lots of kind of fun activity going on. Ton, watch out for Ton. I guess there's a reason why they're passing AVAX and Cardano.
Yeah, they're doing some crazy things. They're actually really getting me on the bandwagon a little bit with just they keep saying come out with better and better news, and they're getting hard to ignore.
Like it's not going anywhere. Like this, they're just building all the time.
Yeah. That being said, let's talk about building. Polygon has just announced that they were going to unlock 1 billion Pol tokens over the next 10 years to provide grant funding to projects. They've just announced that season 1 of grants is live and will be distributing about 35 million Matic to projects. So that's huge, helping to encourage building on Polygon and in the Matic ecosystem. Pretty major news from Polygon on that front. And we've also had Sandeep Nawal, CEO and founder of Polygon, announced that he's going to be making 2 major face melting announcements tomorrow. So definitely check out his Twitter. Maybe we'll have something with Goon. I don't know. That's actually not alpha. That is just pure speculation. And
So you particularly know about?
No, nothing that I know about. This is just goons on Polygon, and I
know we're both invested in Goon, just for full disclosure, but you're pretty active in the community over there. Is there any updates that we should know about?
I think the big one is that we're working on applying for one of those grants from Polygon. Nothing's final yet, but we've been filling out all the paperwork. There's a lot of paperwork so that we can potentially get that funding, either to help with Goon liquidity, buyback and burns, some of the marketing things that we want to do.
We've got some support from some pretty big name players. It's a first mover over on Polygon, so that helps. And if it can get the support of people from Polygon, that would be amazing. It already has some kind of big influence. We got Jesse Eckel and my friend Andy, both kind of supporting the community. It's a community led. How did the community get control of this coin?
We just claimed the deck screener, claimed everything because the contract was announced. So the community just created the Discord, created the Telegram, created everything, and just have rallied around the token.
Basically just holders working for their bags, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. There's even these holders created the 1 billion death fund, which will burn. Now I think it's $110 million worth of Goon at $1 billion market cap.
So if it gets there, this just gets burned.
About 11% of the supply is locked and ready to be burned when they hit 1 billion market cap. So that's a pretty big thing for Goon and that whole ecosystem, with people really stepping up to the plate in that community. That being said, Cardano is approaching a milestone of their own. They are starting to turn things over to their community, handing over $682 million treasury to the community. The Chang fork is supposed to give the Cardano community that treasury, and it's probably the biggest milestone in Cardano history. This is the 8th largest treasury in the industry, and it's funded both by transaction fees and block rewards. So this is going to go to help support the ecosystem and a whole bunch of other parts of.
It's going to go into a whole new governance structure. I think they're talking about a 3-layered group. And the other thing, so the Cardano Foundation, Input Output Global, and some other one. But yeah, for ecosystem development, stability, and all that. The one interesting thing I heard about the Treasury is all ADA. They don't have any other thing else.
That's complicated. Just as someone that knows the challenges with what's going on, if you're holding your own token, in your treasury, you're creating sell pressure if you've got to pay for things. It's interesting. That being said, talking about kind of pressure, it has an 85 million unlock, 3.2% of their circulating supply, and it's all going to the team and early investors.
ARB is one of those tokens that's exciting, but they had a really quote unquote low float coming out, or lower, I don't know. But they have a lot of coins that still are coming. So when you imagine that market cap growing, it also has to take into account all these new coins that are be coming onto the market. So it makes it a little harder for it to achieve milestones potentially.
Yeah. That being said, zkSync just had their airdrop today, and that had about 17.5% of their supply go live. But they also came out at a much lower FDV than a lot of people expected. They launched at about just over a quarter per token. So somewhere around, I think it was somewhere around 30 cents a token. And they actually launched below Starknet, which launched at a $5 billion FDV. And they had more funds raised and more active users than Starknet. So this is interesting and maybe has reflected in the fact that their prices remained relatively stable despite the fact that most tokens have been claimed, and there were a lot of complaints about their airdrop. This is interesting to see. The last I checked, the price was somewhere around 21 cents, so they were down about 25, but considering the sentiment, a lot of people expected them to drop a lot lower, and people expected the FDV to be a lot higher. And so this is somewhat of a bullish thing for zkSync, despite what many would consider a rather mediocre airdrop.
Let's see, what else do we have? That's pretty much everything for today. Thanks for joining us. If you like the content, please just consider liking and subscribing. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks for watching.